Hi everyone, and thanks for being with me. I came upon a story, another one which is following the theme, if you like, around gender violence and how we're dealing with it in this country. And this was a report in the Sydney Morning Herald in relation to a young man who had a history of violence against women. Now, the case here is that he's applying for a visa, or he's being threatened, I should say, to have his visa revoked. And as a result of that, he's had to go to court to have that case challenged. Now, we have cases in Australia where immigrants who act extremely badly are usually, where attempts are made to send them back to the country from which they came. The reasons why they haven't been able to send back on many occasions is simply that there's no country to send them or no country that will receive them. We have an agreement with New Zealand where that is possible. We should not, and certainly are not, attempting to keep people in Australia where they act badly. A number of people have been returned to New Zealand who have had criminal records or have found that they've belonged to gangs who are clearly undesirable. The interesting thing about this particular case, which I'll go through in a moment with you, is that this young man has a large list, as long as your arm, of offending, of breaking the law in varying ways, and particularly in relation to domestic violence. Now, I do want to remind you that the case that we're talking about here is a visa application. It's not about his criminality, but it is based on the fact that he has a large criminal record, and that therefore, as such, he is undesirable. But I also want to couch it in the terms that this is also a person who has committed many offences against women. Now, in light of what I stated yesterday in my last post, was that we need to be tougher on men who perpetuate domestic violence, or violence of any nature for that matter, but in this particular case, particularly violence against women. Now, this particular dude is one of those characters. There is the opportunity to deport him, but the court has chosen not to do that. And I'll just run through the article in the Sydney Morning Herald so that you've got a better understanding as to what this is about. So, violent abuser allowed to stay in Australia after attacking partner with a bat. A serial domestic violence abuser who attacked his last partner with a baseball bat because she was working too much will stay in Australia after tribunal cancelled plans to kick him out. New Zealand citizen Leroy Wilton, 35, has spent his formative years in Australia, where since reaching adulthood he has consistently broken the law, taken ice and stalked or attacked women. This is the dude. Remember that face, and certainly those people out there that, or the women out there that are looking for a relationship, believe me, this is not the guy that you want to have a relationship with. So immigration authorities in March 2023 cancelled his visa and flagged him for deportation to New Zealand after he admitted to a brutal attack on his partner known as Dee. Wilton accused Miss Dee of cheating on him as he had not seen her the previous night. She explained that it was due to her working. Wilton lifted his partner off the ground by her collar and threw her across the room, then stood over her and punched her in the face repeatedly. He grabbed her again and then grabbed a bat located underneath the bed, which caused her to attempt to wrestle the bat away from him. That did not work. Wilton swung the bat down at her. The bloodied and bruised woman escaped to a friend's home. He was convicted of assault causing natural bodily harm, stalking, intimidation, destroying property, all domestic violence offences. This was not the first woman. Now, this is important. She wasn't the first woman who's assaulted. There is a history. So these are the crimes. They date back to 2009, offensive language in a public place, driving with the middle range PCA and never licensed person, drive vehicle on roads. Second offence, destroy of damaged property, destroy of damaged property again, never licensed person, not licensed. Common assault, domestic violence in that instance, never licensed person, again, domestic violence case. We dropped down to 2020. Another one where there was a DV case, 2020, there was another report of another case in August. And then there was the 2020 stalk intimidation DV, 25, 21, another DV case, and the March 14th story property damage DV failed to appear in accordance with bail, acknowledgement, stalk, intimidation, intent, fear, physical, etc. harm, domestic, and assault in the case actually bodily harm, again another DV case. So this dude has been has had many opportunities, I would suggest, to change his behaviour. Now, there's no record of when he, or if he has, ever attended a behavioural management program. None whatsoever. So we'll put that at the side for a moment. In this reporting, though, because there wasn't any indication that he had, I can only assume that he hadn't, because I'm sure that should have come up as an appropriate reason to I guess, suggest that he is finding ways to manage his behaviour and has improved. Now, the last offending was only 12 months away. So it is likely that that 12 months he may have done some work, but it's unlikely, in my experience, for men to have changed their behaviour significantly in that time, and it's also unlikely for them to have changed the behaviour enough to ensure that any relationship they may have in the future will be safe. So it is unlikely, given his last behaviour was 12 months ago, that he has changed significantly in order to be able to suggest to any court, for that matter, that his behaviour has changed significantly. In 2020, he had been convicted of similar domestic violence crisis, as we've talked about. Conviction in 2017, I talked about that. It worried about, so the tribunal concluded Wilton's criminal history weighed heavily against him, letting him stay in Australia. So, and fair enough. I think given the, sorry, I meant to put that up, given the criminal history, one would think that it is problematic that he has changed his behaviour, because there's just so much of a history of it. Not suggesting for a moment that men can't change their behaviour. It worried about Wilton's capacity to stay off drugs and had questions about whether his mental health problems were being properly addressed. Now, I just need to make a comment on that. Mental health is not a reason to mitigate against violence. So because you have there are many people with mental health problems who don't offend. There are many people who clearly do not have a mental health issue who do offend. And there was a time some 15 years ago where it was being suggested that domestic violence is an illness in the same way that they've identified alcoholism. That's just an absolute furphy. It doesn't float, never has. They've done heaps of research on it, never come to that conclusion. Domestic violence is about a whole host of other reasons, which I'm happy to do a session on at some point, but it's certainly not about mental health. So that's a terrible argument, I think, to make. It goes on to say, Milton insisted he was suffering from mental health problems after losing a child to childbirth and battling his own drug addiction. He wanted his crimes to be viewed against that backdrop. Well, they go since 2009. So what age did he lose that child? We do not know. He was the father. I wonder what that experience must have been like for the mother. No consideration of that. Did he beat her as well? Who knows? The tribunal took particular note of Wilton's mother and said the family struggle should be given significant weight in the decision to allow Wilton to stay. The mother was very tearful during her evidence and spoke of the significant emotional hardship she would face in case of her son's removal from Australia. She indicated that she would go with the applicant to New Zealand if she had to. Now, there are some indications too that the family, the mother, don't know about the father, but the mother had some alleged drug problems as well. Eunice said two of the parents of Wilton's 4 children want him to stay in Australia, and the needs for his children should be given significant thought. but the community, she noted, would expect that Wilton not get another chance. The Australian community expects that the Australian government should not revoke the cancellation of Wilton's visa because of his conduct. Despite that, Eunice concluded, this is the magistrate, Wilton should remain in Australia. The tribunal is satisfied that the correct and preferable decision is to revoke the mandatory cancellation of Wilton's visa. Wilton told the tribunal he is now drug-free and plans to contribute treatment for his mental health. Well, buddy, I suggest you should get treatment for your domestic violence to make sure that you are not assaulting any other women. I think that this is an example, like what will possibly be the repercussions if this dude has another relationship, becomes violent and kills her, given we had a chance to do a number of things. We had a chance to lock him up, we had a chance to monitor him, we had a chance to be able to tell any future partners who he is and what he's like and his previous behaviours and his previous convictions. We had an opportunity to do all of those things, but we have chosen, I think at this point, there's no indication that we've chosen to do any of them, apart from accepting that he had a shitty childhood, he lost a child at birth, and that he had a drug problem. But is there any indication in this reporting that he's been able to address his behavioural issues? And this is a problem. We let guys like this get away with it, and they continue to commit the crimes, and they continue to kill women. And there must be something that we must do to put an end to it. I'd be interested in your views. Make them in the comment section below. Love to hear from you. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.